You're at the grocery store, and your baby is smiling at the cashier. Full, open, radiant. The kind of smile that makes a stranger's entire day. Then Grandma walks through the door, arms wide open, voice full of love. And your baby screams. It seems cruel. It seems random. But developmental psychologists at 4 major universities have spent decades decoding exactly why babies do this. And what they found doesn't just explain the crying. It reveals one of the most sophisticated social survival systems ever encoded in the human brain. The obvious explanation goes like this. Babies smile at strangers because they're friendly. They cry with family members because maybe they're tired, maybe they're in a mood. It sounds reasonable. It maps onto our adult logic. People are either friendly or they're not. But here's the problem with that theory. If babies were simply friendly, they would smile at everyone equally. They don't. They smile at some strangers and not others. They smile in some rooms and not others. And they cry with people they've seen 100 times, but only when those people appear in certain ways, at certain moments. In 1977, a developmental psychologist at the University of Minnesota named L. Alan Sroufe published a paper that shattered the friendly baby explanation entirely. He demonstrated that the same baby who smiled at a stranger in one context would cry at that exact same stranger 60 seconds later, simply by changing one variable. Not the person, the context. The friendly versus unfriendly baby theory wasn't just incomplete, it was looking at the wrong thing altogether. Sroufe's 1977 study, published in the journal Child Development out of the University of Minnesota, tested infant reactions to unfamiliar adults across controlled conditions. The critical variable was not who the stranger was, it was where the baby was sitting. When a baby was seated on a parent's lap during the approach, smiling rates at the stranger exceeded 70%. When the same baby was placed in a high chair just 3 feet from the parent, same room, same stranger, same everything, crying rates more than doubled. The baby wasn't reacting to the person. The baby was reading the geometry of safety. 3 feet of distance from the parent's body was enough to flip the entire emotional response. Think of it as a proximity equation running in the background of the infant brain, constantly calculating how safe it is to be social. Your baby is not friendly or unfriendly. Your baby is running a real-time threat assessment calibrated to the nearest inch. But it goes deeper than that. In 2013, a research team led by Rebecca Brooker at the University of Wisconsin-Madison published a study in the journal Child Development that tracked temperamental profiles in over 90 infants. They found that babies categorized as behaviorally uninhibited, meaning lower baseline fear, smiled at unfamiliar adults at nearly twice the rate of inhibited infants. But not because they were braver, because they had learned, through repeated experience, that smiling at an unfamiliar face produces a reliable reward. The stranger smiles back, speaks softly, engages. These babies were not being friendly. They were executing a social strategy. A smile aimed at a stranger is not an expression of emotion. It is a bid, a calculated signal designed to recruit a benevolent response from someone whose intentions are unknown. And here's what nobody expected. In 1966, H.R. Schaefer at the University of Glasgow published research documenting a finding that troubled nearly every assumption about stranger anxiety. He found that visiting grandparents, relatives who appeared only once every few weeks, triggered stronger anxiety responses in infants than complete strangers encountered in a positive social setting. Read that again. A grandparent provoked more fear than a stranger. The reason is that a stranger in a cheerful environment, a shop, a park, a social gathering, arrives inside a context the baby can read. The context says, safe. But a grandparent who appears at the front door without warning exists in an impossible category for the infant brain. This face is stored in memory. It carries an emotional charge. But the arrival pattern is unpredictable. And for a developing brain that relies on predictability to feel safe, a familiar face arriving unpredictably is more destabilizing than an unfamiliar face arriving inside a stable context. Your baby doesn't cry at grandma because they don't love her. Your baby cries because their brain is sophisticated enough to notice that grandma's appearance doesn't follow a pattern, and pattern is the currency of infant safety. Think about this the next time it happens. You're holding your baby at a family gathering. A cousin approaches. Your baby beams at them. Your mother walks over, the person who bought the crib, who calls every day, who would do anything for this child, and the baby turns away and buries their face in your chest. And your mother looks at you, hurt, confused. Why does the baby hate me? The baby doesn't hate her. The baby trusts you so completely that your body is the only place where the math of safety works out perfectly. Every familiar face that appears outside the daily rhythm is a small earthquake in the baby's prediction engine. And the only shelter from that earthquake is you. You are not watching your baby reject your mother. You are watching your baby choose you as the one fixed point in an overwhelming world. That is not a problem. That is proof that the attachment system is working exactly as it should. In 1979, Mary Ainsworth at the University of Virginia published the most cited study in the history of attachment research. It was called The Strange Situation, and it was designed to do something no one had attempted at that scale. Measure the invisible bond between a parent and a child by breaking it temporarily. Here's how it worked. A mother and baby were placed in an unfamiliar room filled with toys. The baby was allowed to explore. Then a stranger entered the room. Then the mother left. The baby was alone with the stranger. Then the mother returned. What Ainsworth measured was not what happened during the separation. It was what happened during the reunion. Babies classified as securely attached, roughly 65% of the sample, did something remarkable. During the play phase, when their mother was present, they explored freely. They approached the stranger. Many smiled. They crawled to the far corners of the room. But the instant the mother left, the world collapsed. The toys became irrelevant. The stranger became threatening. Every ounce of exploratory courage evaporated. And when the mother returned, these babies did not simply stop crying. They went to her, made physical contact, calmed down within seconds, and then turned around and began exploring again, as if a switch had been flipped, as if her presence physically restored the capacity for courage. Ainsworth called this the secure base effect. The mother's body was not just a source of comfort, it was the launchpad. Without the base, no exploration. Without the safety signal, no smiling at strangers. The social boldness that makes a baby beam at a cashier in the grocery store is not personality. It is a direct, measurable output of how secure that baby feels with the person holding them. This reframes everything. That smile your baby gives to a stranger in the supermarket is not a betrayal of your bond. It is the product of it. It means the attachment system is so solid, so reliable, that the baby's brain has freed up resources to do what infant brains are built to do. Recruit allies, map social environments, practice the fundamental human skill of connecting with unfamiliar people. The smile at the stranger is evidence that you have done your job. The cry at the grandparent is evidence that your baby's prediction engine is sophisticated enough to detect irregular patterns in familiar faces. Brooker's data showed that infants with more responsive caregivers, parents who consistently answered cries, returned gazes, and maintained physical proximity, were significantly more likely to exhibit uninhibited social behavior with strangers by 12 months of age. The responsiveness didn't make them reckless. It gave their brains permission to be bold. You are not raising a baby who likes strangers more than family. You are raising a baby whose nervous system trusts you enough to take social risks. And that capacity, the ability to feel safe enough to reach toward the unknown, is one of the single strongest predictors of social and emotional health across the entire lifespan. Now, a note. Some babies don't smile at anyone. Not strangers, not parents. Some babies show extreme distress at every unfamiliar face, regardless of context, regardless of who's holding them. If that sounds like your child, it doesn't mean something is wrong. Temperament varies enormously. Brooker's research at Wisconsin-Madison documented that behavioral inhibition, a heightened sensitivity to novelty, is a stable, inborn trait that appears in roughly 15 to 20% of all infants. It is not a disorder. It is a variation. But if the pattern is persistent and accompanied by an absence of social referencing, the baby never looks to you for reassurance, never checks your face before reacting, it may be worth a conversation with your pediatrician. Not because something is wrong, but because early support, when it's needed, works. Trust what you see. No instrument on earth is better calibrated to read your baby than you are. So the next time your baby smiles at a perfect stranger and then wails the moment your mother reaches for them, don't apologize. Don't explain it away, and don't for a second believe that your baby loves a stranger more than the person who rocks them to sleep every night. What you're watching is a 60,000-year-old survival system performing exactly as designed. Your baby's brain is drawing a circle of absolute safety around you, and from inside that circle, it is brave enough to smile at the entire world. The cry is not rejection. The cry is the sound of a bond so deep that any disruption in the pattern registers as a tremor. And the smile, that open, unguarded, radiant smile at a stranger, is not disloyalty. It is the highest compliment your baby's nervous system knows how to pay. It means, I am so safe with you that I can afford to be curious about everyone else. If this changed how you see your baby's reactions, subscribe to this channel and tell me in the comments, has your baby ever smiled at a stranger while completely ignoring a family member? I want to hear the story. And if you've ever noticed that your baby stares at certain faces longer than others, not smiling, not crying, just studying them, that's the next video. And the neuroscience behind it is extraordinary.